Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're here. Finally, we're back for the mixer with Steven Dumeng on 1495 Sports, our good friends at 1495. And we're here to talk UFC 296. We're 4 events away from the UFC 300. 300, I wonder what's going to happen. Gosh, there's so many different rumors. I mean, George St. Pierre unfortunately just shot one down. There was a tease of George St. Pierre returning against Nick Diaz, which, quite frankly, I as much a fan of both fighters, I really wouldn't want to see that. Although it would be awesome to see GSP back in the octagon, it would be better. I would prefer a different fight. That said, for UFC 300, I think we might get some big things. I mean, maybe Ronda Rousey returns, maybe Brock Lesnar. I think it will be really cool. I'm very much looking forward to UFC 300. I know Dana's been promoting it and again, dropping a lot of teases for what may be on the verge. Maybe Conor McGregor makes his highly anticipated return. I think that, honestly, is probably one of the more logical main events, him versus Chandler finally happening, but we're 4 events away, so I'm excited. But first, we have to take a look at UFC 296, headlined by Colby Chaos Covington and Leon Edwards. And this fight, finally, these guys are finally going to throw down. I'm excited to finally see it happen. The welterweight division has been largely referred to as the welterweight, as in WAIT division, because there's been a lack of activity in the division. Unfortunately, we have seen so many days pass without marquee fighters fighting until this weekend at UFC 296. So, we have the strap on the line. We have Leon Edwards defending his championship against Colby Covington, and this is a surprisingly difficult fight for me to call. I feel it really can. Stylistically, I believe Covington does have the advantage. However, I think the inactivity in the octagon, on top of the fact that Edwards arguably has looked better in his fights against Usman. I think Kamaru Usman is the key component for this fight, because both these gentlemen very familiar with Usman, having fought him almost exclusively over the last few years. Covington unfortunately dropping 2 fights to Usman. However, Edwards being able to avenge his loss, which actually was his last loss, was Usman over nearly 10 years ago. He avenged it twice, 2-over. He got the head kick knockout, and also he was able to secure the decision against Usman. So he is 2-1 against Usman. Covington 0-2 against Usman. Usman being the former champion. It really, really puts the fight into perspective. But stylistically, I do feel that Colby is a pretty nightmarish fight for Edwards, So that's what makes this fight very intriguing. I can see Covington get a decision here by just simply outworking, and I feel he has the better cardio. And he has the volume in his favor for his output. However, I do feel Edwards has the power advantage, and quite frankly, again, if we're using the common denominator, mouthful there, of Usman, it becomes a little more clear that Edwards is arguably at the advantage here because he has actually defeated Usman. So Covington's coming off a win, a lopsided decision win over Jorge Masvidal, and Edwards himself, again, coming off those wins over Usman, hasn't lost in years. Again, I think a tough fight to call. It's surprisingly tough. I don't think it's as easy as people are making it seem. I could really see a decision leaning towards Covington, or Edwards simply being able to tag Covington. So Covington is very durable. He only has one, aside from Usman, the 2 Usman losses, he only has one other loss to another fighter, being Alves, which he got submitted very quickly early on in his UFC tenure. And we have seen, again, Edwards hasn't taste a loss in so long. So I think those factors are coming into play. It makes this fight very intriguing. We finally get to see the welterweight division move forward, which is awesome. I think ultimately, though, I'm going to go with a decision. I think Edwards is going to be able to do it. I will gladly eat my words if I'm wrong, but I think Edwards by decision, unanimous decision. So it's going to be a very intriguing fight. One I'm very, very much looking forward to. In addition, we have the flyweights in action. Brandon Royval against Alexander Pantoja in a rematch. Here, where Pantoja has submitted Royval before. Actually, it was Royval's last defeat. He's been on a 3-fight win streak since then and has looked pretty darn solid, I might add. However, Pantoja has been, on another level. He looks fantastic against Moreno in his last fight. He's riding a 4-fight win streak. I really think, he has Royval's number. He's beaten him before. I think he's going to repeat history. I'm going with Pantoja here by submission again in the second round. I just think Pantoja is just on another level. He's looked incredible. There's not much more to say for me, I feel. Moving on, we have Shavkat Rakhmonov, the highly touted, undefeated 17-0, all finishes. This man has not seen a decision yet in his 17-fight career in MMA against Steven Wonderboy Thompson at welterweight. Again, another fight with huge ramifications for the welterweight division. That's why I'm very excited for 296, amongst other things, because we get to see the welterweight division finally moving. We have Wonderboy back in action. He's been inactive for a year, actually. He hasn't fought since his win over Kevin Holland last year. And we also have, like I said, the aforementioned undefeated Shavkat Rakhmonov. This guy is someone being touted as a future welterweight title holder. And I agree. The stats speak for themselves. 17-0. He has all finishes. He's looked quite destructive, whether it's on the ground, on the feet. The guy has power. The guy has submissions. He's got wrestling. He has a pretty damn solid chin. We saw him get tagged by Jeff Neal in his last fight, and Neal is another guy known for his power, and he was able to fight through it. That fight was one of my favorite fights. It was insane. But not only was he able to fight through the adversity against Neal, he ended up still securing the finish in the third round of a absolute war. And like I said, one of my favorite fights in recent memory. Not to take anything away from Wonderboy, but I think he's got his hands full. This is a tough fight for anybody. It doesn't matter who you are. That said, I'm going to go with Shavkat here. I think he's going to push it to 18-0. I think it should be pretty much lining him up for a future title shot. Maybe one more away, maybe. But he's really on the cusp. He's, I believe, 5-0 in the UFC. Again, all finishes. Extremely exciting fighter. And someone that I bought into the hype. He's more than succeeded in delivering. So the hype is very much deserved. I think the Shavkat Rakhmonov train continues with a win over Steven Wonderboy Thompson. I think we will see I think he'll be able to secure submission. I think late in the fight, I think probably maybe late second round, I'm going to go with Shavkat by submission. I don't think Wonderboy has as much to offer against Shavkat. He does have, I feel, a striking advantage. However, I believe Shavkat is more of an overall package fighter here, and I think he'll be able to take it to the ground after kind of testing the waters on the feet, get the submission, and continue his run. In addition, we have the very entertaining Tony Ferguson back in action against Paddy Pimblett, someone who's largely been kind of inconsistent despite being undefeated in the UFC. In my opinion, being quite inconsistent in regards to his performances. He's certainly obviously won all his last fights. It's controversial, however, whether he was awarded the correct decision in his last fight against Gordon, rather. But in any case, he's back in action against Tony Ferguson, someone that was lauded as the uncrowned lightweight champion at one point in time when he was supposed to have his fight against Nurmagomedov, and unfortunately just never transpired. It was going to be one of those big what-if moments. We'll never know, sadly. Never say never, but extremely, extremely unlikely that ever happens. But again, Ferguson back in action, riding an unfortunate skid. I believe he's 5 or 6 fights, just taking some very tough losses against, talented fighters. Not that he's losing to people that are Joe Schmoes, so to speak, but unfortunately still riding a very bad skid. He desperately needs this win. He's older. He needs to get this win no matter what. This, for me, the way I see it, I would love for him to take the win and retire and enjoy the rest of his life. He's given so much to the MMA community, the world, his body. He's been through absolute wars left and right, and the epitome of excitement. But still taken some very nasty losses in recent memory, and that could certainly work to Pimblett's advantage. He's riding a 4-fight win streak here, and in the UFC, and despite his momentum kind of shifting because of the, again, controversial decision and whether he's actually looked truly impressive in his fights, has certainly lent some favor to Ferguson. So I think this is a surprisingly tougher fight to call than many people might be thinking, because Ferguson is just getting so quickly discounted. But that said, my heart... This is one of those tough ones where my heart wants Ferguson to win so badly, but realistically, Pimblett is a younger fighter. He's a fresher fighter. I can see him tagging Ferguson. Ferguson just had so much damage especially his last few fights. He's taken some considerable damage. My heart tells me I would love to see Ferguson get the knockout, retire, call it a career, and be on his way and go into the Hall of Fame deservingly. But Pimblett might be there to stop it. So if I have to pick an actual winner for it, ladies and gentlemen, this is a tough one. This is a really personal one for me. Like I said, big Ferguson fan. I think... I want Ferguson to win. Am I going to do it, ladies and gentlemen? Am I going to do it? Am I going to do it? What am I going to say? We're going to go with, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go with my heart on this one. Ferguson, TKO, round 2. I want it to happen. That's what I would love to see. And again, I want that Cinderella story. In MMA, unfortunately, the Cinderella stories are few and far between. Not everyone is ending their career like Khabib or GSP, for example, where they get to end on a big win. But I think I want Ferguson to win this one. So we will see, ladies and gentlemen. And lastly, rounding out the main card for UFC 296, because Vicente Luque and Ian Gary's fight has been canceled. Another fight, unfortunately, that will not be happening because of some sickness to Gary. So unfortunately, big fight canceled. It was going to be another welterweight division fight that decided a lot, but unfortunately we'll not be seeing it happen, at least not tomorrow. Hopefully it gets rebooked for the future. And in its place, opening the main card, we'll have Josh Emmett at featherweight action against Bryce Mitchell. We have Josh Emmett, who's 18-4, unfortunately winless in 2023, looking to end a 2-fight skid. Prior to that, he was riding a 4-fight win streak. Very impressive wins there prior to his skid against the short notice fighter, Bryce Mitchell, coming on short notice, like I just said, fresh off his win against Dan Ige in September. and he is looking to build some momentum. Prior to that, he had suffered loss, but he also has a win over talented fighter like Edson Barboza. So, we can't dismiss Bryce Mitchell, Josh Emmett being the older fighter. Some arguably saying these are his last few fights. I think things like that certainly play a factor. He also, much like a Ferguson, has taken a considerable amount of damage, being in some absolute wars. Those 5-round decisions, ladies and gentlemen, that adds up so much damage, especially being an older individual too. You have, arguably these guys are guys and girls 39 years old or so, but realistically their bodies are probably somewhere in the 50s, considering all the damage they have taken. That said, I like Mitchell in this fight. I think it's going to work in his favor. He is taking a short notice. Short notice is always a gamble. You never know if people are going to be in the same fight shape that they'd be versus being in an actual fight camp where they have a scheduled fight. But I think it's going to lean in Mitchell's favor. I think he'll be able to capitalize. I think I'm going with Bryce by... I think he will get a decision here. I think it'll be a competitive fight, but like I said, I think Emmett has his back against the wall. I mean, it's going to be good for us because he's really going to try and push the envelope, so to speak, because he really, really needs the win here. However, I think Mitchell will be able to capitalize. So that is UFC 296. It will be happening this Saturday. I will be watching. I know you will be watching. I know our friends at 1494. Gosh, I should probably get some sleep. 1495. They will be tuning in, and I just want to wish everyone a very, very happy holidays. Thank you so much. It's been so exciting and so awesome. I love it. That's one of my favorite words because I'm just happy. I love it. 1495, thank you again for giving the Mixer a platform and a chance to share with you MMA knowledge, some MMA picks. So those are my selections for UFC 296. Enjoy the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be watching, and we'll see you in the new year. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.